Many industrial applications require that we periodically sample processed data and store it into an archive. Once archived, the data should be available for analysis, reporting, and viewing at an operator station. In this section, we'll show you how to configure this functionality using WinCC's tag logging editor. First, we'll look at an archive that's already been set up, then we'll review the steps necessary to build it. We're looking at a simple WinCC runtime screen. We have a tank object that's connected to the tag tank100. We also have a couple of fill objects that are connected to our RAM and CPU utilization tags configured under our system info driver. Below, we have a display that is showing the actual archive in our database and the data being inserted into it every 500 milliseconds. You can see that we're sampling the current data for tank100, for CPU utilization, and also for available RAM. Now let's take a look at the steps that it takes to create these archives. The purpose of WinCC's tag logging editor is to periodically sample data from your process and store it into an archive for later analysis, reporting, and display. To create an archive in your project, open the WinCC Explorer application, right-click on the tag logging icon, and choose Open. Once the editor appears, right-click on the Archives icon and choose Archive Wizard. The Archive Wizard will step you through creating an archive. I'll choose Next and give my archive a name, My Archive, and then choose Next again. Now we select the tags for our archive using the selection browser. For this archive, I'll choose the internal tag tank100. I'll also use my browser to select under my system info channel my tags CPU, util, and RAM. Now that I have my tags, I press Finish and the new archive is created. If I highlight it, the details of the archive are shown below. Here, this archive constitutes values from the tank100 tag, my CPU util, and my RAM. Values from these tags will be stored in our archive, which is an ODBC database, in an acquisition cycle of 500 milliseconds. You can further define how the archives behave by right-clicking on the archive tag and choosing Properties. The Properties dialog allows you to change the name of the archive tag, select an acquisition type, and an acquisition and archiving time. You can also use under the Parameters tab the Archive Only Upon Change feature and processing features that allow you to store the actual value or some preset algorithm. You can also do C scripts if you desire. I'll close this dialog, save my settings, and then close the editor. The next step is to make sure tag logging is turned on for runtime. So I'll go to the name of my WinCC server and choose Properties. Under the Properties of the server page, I choose the Startup tab and I make sure there's a checkbox in my tag logging runtime. This will make sure that my logging is running during runtime. I'll close this. The next step will be to create a graphics page where I can see the contents of my archive. Once we've created archives in the tag logging editor, the next step is to create graphics designer screens that show the contents of the archive. In this project, we've already created a screen called Archives, so we'll take a look at how to configure it. I'll right-click and choose Open, and you can see that I have a few objects on the screen that are connected to the tags in my archive, like tank100, RAM, and CPU. Now I need a display object to show my contents. This is done on my object palette under the Controls tab. We'll scroll down and choose the WinCC Online Table Control and put it out on the screen. The Properties page for my table control automatically comes up. I can give it a name, and I can choose the background color, and I can also decide to have a common time column, sizable, and decide if it can be closed. Under my Columns tab is where I add the columns for my data. I'll click the Add button, and on my first column I'll name this Tank100, and I'd like it to appear as blue. For the tag selection, I choose my selection icon, and I'll choose the tank100 tag from my archive, and I'll do the same procedure. Column 2 will be RAM, and I'll give it the color of yellow, and the tag selection will be RAM. For column 3, I'll give it CPU, and its color will be magenta. Then I'll press the selection dialog to locate the tag. So my column 1 is named Tank 100. It is the color blue and is my Tank 100 tag in my Archives archive. Under RAM it's yellow and I've chosen the RAM tag, and under CPU it's my CPU util entry in my archive and it's magenta. I choose apply and OK. I can now save this picture and then test it in runtime by using File, Runtime. In runtime you can see that my archive window is showing data going in every 500 milliseconds, and you can see the Tank 100 column, the RAM column, and the CPU. We have toolbar tools that allow us to further configure how this table looks.